If fixed challenge data has been filed against your entity, either via a consumer challenge from the National Broadband Map or by an entity as part of the bulk challenge process, you have the ability to respond to each individual challenge. A workflow has been established where providers can view each challenge submitted against their entity, correspond with the consumer or entity that filed the challenge data, and either concede or dispute each individual challenge. Providers can also remove or update their coverage data for the challenge location during this process. For additional information on the challenge process, you can always visit the Broadband Data Collection Help Center online at help.bdc.fcc.gov. After logging into the BDC system at bdc.fcc.gov, select your entity to navigate to the Submissions Dashboard page. If fixed challenge data has been filed against your entity, a total count of fixed challenges that have been submitted against your entity will be displayed on this Submissions Dashboard page within the biannual submissions table. For this tutorial, you can see that a total of 5 fixed challenges have been submitted against my entity. If no fixed challenge data has ever been filed against your entity, this fixed challenges link will not be displayed. Clicking on this link will navigate you to the fixed challenge response page. You can also view a count of pending fixed challenge data filed against your entity on the submission overview page. After clicking on the data as of date on the submissions dashboard, you will see a card displayed adjacent to the blue biennial filing window summary information box. This card also displays a count of fixed crowdsource data filed against your entity, if applicable. If no fixed challenge data has ever been filed against your entity, this card will not be displayed. Clicking on this card will navigate you to the fixed challenge response page. The fixed challenge response page for your entity displays a summary of all challenges that have been filed against you, both via the bulk challenge process and from consumer challenges on the National Broadband Map. Users can view an In Progress tab that displays all active challenges and an Archive tab that displays any historical challenges that have been resolved. In this example, I have 5 challenges in progress, while the Archive page is currently blank. There are 4 cards on the In Progress page, which signify a bucket or grouping of where each individual challenge resides, and each card contains a count of challenges that fall within that grouping. The table and column names within this page will update dynamically based upon the card you have selected and will allow you to investigate each challenge individually. Filers can also filter the table on these pages by ID, location ID, technology, and fixed challenge category. Beneath the cards, there is a count that will update when challenges are approaching a response due date. The page will display a count of challenges that require an action within 14 days, 14 to 30 days, and 30 to 60 days, if applicable. There are 4 challenge groupings for challenges that are in progress. When a challenge has initially been filed against your entity, it will fall within the initial review bucket. You have 60 days to review challenges within this bucket and select an initial response. You can see here that I have 5 challenges that fall within this grouping. If you dispute a challenge within the initial review step, the challenge will reside in the active disputes grouping. You have 60 days to attempt to resolve the dispute with the challenger before selecting a final response, which will either be to concede the challenge or continue to dispute the challenge. If a challenge was disputed in both the initial review step and the active dispute step, it will be placed within the Under FCC Review bucket. There is no action required for the challenge provider in this step, as the FCC will need to adjudicate these challenges and provide a final resolution. Finally, if a challenge has been conceded by the provider at any step, or if the FCC has ruled to uphold a challenge, the challenge will be placed within this final certification required grouping. Providers will have 30 days to certify new data for challenge records in this grouping, either by removing the challenge record from their coverage or by updating the record with a modified technology and speed combination. To illustrate how a provider may respond to an individual challenge, I will start within the initial review step. When a challenge has initially been filed against your entity, it will fall within this grouping. You have 60 days to review challenges within this bucket and select an initial response. In the table on the page, you can see a list of the 5 challenges filed against my entity that fall within this bucket. Every challenge filed against your entity will have a unique challenge ID, which can be viewed in the first column. The table also displays the location ID for the challenge, the date the challenge was received, the technology and category of the challenge, and a date by which you will need to provide a response. You can click on the View link in the Challenge Details modal to view additional information about that specific challenge. This window includes numerous details about that individual record, including who filed the challenge, the address and location ID for the challenge, and any evidence files or evidence descriptions that were filed at the time of the challenge. If an evidence file was provided as part of the challenge, you can click on the link to download that evidence to your local machine. You can also click on the View on Challenges map link to see the specific challenge on a map. Within the initial response column, you can select one of two options, either concede or dispute. Conceding a challenge signifies that you agree with the challenger and your data will need to be updated to account for the record being conceded. If your initial response is to concede, the challenge will be moved from the initial review bucket to the certification required bucket. When conceding a challenge in the initial review step, you may provide an optional evidence file and/or comments to be associated with the challenge. If your initial response is to dispute a challenge, that means that you disagree with the challenger regarding the challenge record. When disputing a challenge in the initial review step, an evidence file is required, while comments associated with the challenge are optional. Once a challenge is disputed in the initial review bucket, it is moved to the active disputes grouping. For this tutorial, I will dispute this challenge, challenge ID 38231. The file I attach with my challenge will undergo a virus scan, and once it has completed processing, the window will close, and this challenge will be moved to the active disputes bucket. As you can now see, challenge ID 38231 is now displayed within the active disputes bucket. The count for challenges within the initial review grouping has diminished by 1 and now displays 4 challenges in that bucket, while the count of challenges in the active disputes grouping is now 1. Any challenge disputed in the initial review step will reside in the active disputes grouping. You have 60 days to attempt to resolve a dispute with the challenger before selecting a final response. Beneath the cards on this page, there is a count that will update when challenges are approaching a final response due date. The page will display a count of challenges that require an action within 14 days, 14 to 30 days, and 30 to 60 days. The table on the active disputes page displays similar information to the table on the initial review page. The only additional column on this page is the response details column, which allows you to view the initial response details for that challenge in a pop-up window. You can click the download link here to view the associated evidence file we supplied during the initial review dispute decision. If for any reason you wish to revert a challenge back to a previous step, you can do so by clicking the Revert option within the final response column. In this case, the challenge would be moved back to the initial review step. However, the time frame for which a response is required for this individual challenge would not be reset. For example, if you made a dispute decision in the initial review step on day 55 of the original 60-day period for which a decision would need to be made, you would be able to revert that challenge back to the initial review bucket, but only for 5 more days. On day 61, you would be unable to revert that challenge to a previous step. For this example, I'm going to make a final response for the challenge by clicking the Resolve option in the final response column. If your final response is to concede a challenge within this step, select that option in the modal. You can provide an optional evidence file and/or additional comments that will accompany your challenge. When you click Resolve for a conceded challenge, your challenge will then be moved to the final step, the certification required grouping. As you can see, challenge ID 38231 has been moved to the final bucket, as I have conceded that the challenger was correct and I intend to modify my coverage data. However, for this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how the revert process works. So I will choose to revert this challenge from the options in this Certify column. This will move the challenge back to the previous step. In this case, I am reverting this challenge back to the active disputes grouping. As you can see, challenge ID 38231 has been moved back to the active disputes bucket, and the counts on the cards have been updated accordingly. If after communicating with the challenger that you still wish to dispute the challenge, you can do so by selecting Resolve in the final response column. Then selecting the second option in the modal. You will need to select one of several options pertaining to how the challenge was resolved, as well as whether the challenger agrees with your dispute decision. Finally, you may add an optional evidence file and/or comments that will be associated with your challenge decision. Clicking the Resolve button will close the window and move this challenge to the third bucket, the Under FCC Review grouping. If a challenge was disputed in both the initial review step and the active dispute step, the challenge will be placed within the Under FCC Review bucket. There is no action required for the challenge provider within this step, as the FCC will need to adjudicate these challenges and provide a final resolution. If you'd like to revert a challenge from this step, you may still do so, as long as the timeframe for doing so falls within the 60-day window from the active dispute step. However, once a challenge has been adjudicated by the FCC, you will no longer be able to revert that record. If the FCC agrees with your disputed final response and decides to overturn the challenge will be moved to the Archive tab located at the top of the screen, and no further action will be required from you. You will be able to click on the Archive tab and view additional details about that particular challenge, including response details and any associated FCC resolution comments. If the FCC disagrees with your disputed final response and decides to uphold the challenge in favor of the challenger, the challenge will be moved to the Certification Required bucket. Off-screen, I'm going to act as the FCC and uphold the challenge, meaning the FCC has agreed that the challenger is correct and the coverage for this location will need to be modified. As I refresh the page, you will now see that challenge ID 38231 has been moved from the Under FCC Review bucket to the Certification Required grouping. The Certification Required bucket contains any challenges that were conceded by the provider at any point, either within the initial review or active dispute step, as well as any challenges that have been upheld by the FCC during their adjudication process. Providers have 30 days to certify new data within this step, either by removing the challenge record from their coverage or by updating the record with a modified technology and speed combination. Within the table on this page, you will be able to view much of the same information that has been visible within the other groupings. The Response Details link allows you to view information pertaining to different responses submitted by the provider throughout the challenge process, while the Adjudication Details link allows you to view details pertaining to when the FCC made their final decision. If you conceded a challenge at any point in the process, you may still have the option to revert that challenge within the Certify step, provided that the 60-day window for you to revert that specific challenge is still open. Reverted challenges will return to the step from which they were conceded. For example, if you conceded a challenge in Step 1 and then reverted that challenge in Step 4, the challenge would return to Step 1. Please note that challenges adjudicated by the FCC cannot be reverted to a previous step. In this example, challenge ID 38231 cannot be reverted because the FCC has already provided a resolution for this challenge. To certify new data, click the Certify option in the final column. Within the window that appears, select either Remove this record or Update this record. If you select Remove this record, that record will be removed from your coverage data for the technology speed combination that was challenged. If you select Update this record, you must then select a technology, maximum advertised download speed, and maximum advertised upload speed. These new technology and speed values will be assigned to the record that you are updating. For both the Remove this record and Update this record certification types, you can provide additional comments to accompany your certification. You must also provide contact information for the certifying official. If you wish, you can click the checkbox here to automatically populate the contact fields using the information that you have provided from the Entity Information page. To finish the certification process, click the checkbox signifying your electronic signature, then click the Certify button. Once you have certified a challenge, that record will no longer be included in the counts on the In Progress page. Instead, the challenge will now be listed within the table on the Archive page. This Archive page provides a historical view of all challenges against your provider, including challenges that you have certified, as well as challenges that have been overturned by the FCC during their adjudication process. Clicking on the links in these columns will allow you to view additional information on the specific challenge, including response details from the challenge process, information the FCC provided during their adjudication process, and the certification information you provided when certifying the challenge. Once a challenge has been moved to this archive, it is unable to be reverted by a provider. In the top right corner of the page, you will see two links, Download Detail and View Map. Clicking the Download Detail link will download a CSV to your local machine that includes detailed information for each challenge record filed against your entity. Clicking the View Map link will open a map of all the challenge locations filed against your entity. This map functions the same as the other maps within the Broadband Data Collection interface, allowing you to pan and zoom freely while filtering the map for your desired results. The selected record count will update based on your filtered selections for category and adjudication status. The bottom Layers icon in this menu here allows you to modify the base map to suit your preference. You can also click on the globe icon to view a map of the continental United States, and clicking this circular icon will reset the map back to its original view. If you have several challenges in a specific area, your data may initially be depicted with a clustered data point, which is displayed here. Clicking on a number within the clustered data point will zoom the map to that location, and I can then pan and zoom on the map to investigate my challenges further. Any challenges that are pending are listed in yellow on this map, while points listed in green are challenges that were conceded by the provider or upheld by the FCC during the adjudication process. Challenges depicted by red dots are those that were overturned or rejected by the FCC during their adjudication process. If you hover your mouse over a point in the map, you will see a tooltip displayed for that location. This tooltip includes various types of data related to that specific challenge. When I hover my mouse over this green dot here, you can see information specific to the challenge we adjudicated earlier, challenge ID 38231. As I return to the Fixed Challenges page, please note the Fixed Crowdsource link above the In Progress and Archive tabs. Clicking on this link will navigate you to a page that includes any fixed crowdsource data that has been filed against your entity. The count at the top of the page includes a subset of crowdsourced data categorized by response provided and no response provided. The table on this page is very similar to the table seen within the Fixed Challenge response process. You can click on the View Details link here to view additional information on a particular record, and you can filter the table by ID, location ID, technology, category, and response. Providers are not required to respond to fixed crowdsourced data. However, you can provide a response if you wish by clicking on the Respond link in the Action column. Simply add your text within the comment box and click Save to close the window. Once you have responded, you will see that the counts in the box at the top of the page have been updated, and the Action column now displays Edit Response for that challenge. You can click on that link to edit and save your comments as necessary. Clicking on the Download Detail link will download the data from this table onto your local machine as a CSV file. The View Map link will allow you to view the crowdsourced data filed against your entity on a map, similar to how it is displayed on the Fixed Challenge Response map. This map can be filtered by challenge category and whether a response has been provided for each challenge location. Challenges that do not have a response are depicted by yellow dots, and challenges that providers have responded to are indicated by green dots. You can hover your mouse over an individual location to view a tooltip about that crowdsourced data point. This concludes the walkthrough of the BDC Fixed Challenge Response process. For additional information on the broadband data collection, including data specifications and video tutorials, please visit the BDC Help Center, which can be accessed at any time by clicking this help link within the BDC system or by visiting help.bdc.fcc.gov.